We. Let come and huyo. Ladies and gentlemen, I am recording my first episode in bed. Karibu nilale. Because tell me why. It is 9 minutes to 11 p.m. and I've just remembered I need to record an episode. Oh my God, this adulting thing has to end right now. I need to put it to a stop now. What is happening, bwana? Hey, if you could only explain it to me. But anyway, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Cordial Podcast with me, your host, Kang'ong'oi. You can now call me a certified latecomer. Jesus hizi ni nini? Hizi ni gani tunafanya hapa? And the way I had set up a lot of things just to be prepared for this particular episode. But we are here. We are thankful. At least I'm not recording on a Saturday, you know. It is still Friday, so yeah, we thank God. We thank God for that because karibu nisahau. Nilikuwa nishazama. Nilikuwa nishajitupa kwa kitanda, duvet, the cold, bwana. There's a funny kind of cold going around. Not cold as in the disease, but cold as in the atmosphere. Legs are freezing. Fingers are freezing. Jamani, tutaelekea wapi? But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to dive in directly into today's episode and segment 2 of, our 3 segments that we have set aside for the human blueprint. And we are talking about... Hey, jamani. Commercial break. Because what was that? It's not giving demure. That was not very mindful. What was that? You see, I have just mentioned the cold, and then it decided to now show its presence. Jamani, these allergies. But anyway, our second segment is about behavioral patterns. Behavioral patterns. Well, they are basically our actions. Our actions are also influenced by predictable patterns. Our actions are always influenced by predictable patterns. Let's talk about habits. So, basically, when you're talking about behavioral patterns, I think it's... Okay, not I think. I think mpaka imekuwa something that I only start with in every sentence that I use. But behavioral patterns to me are things that we've normalized doing in our personal lives, where if you're used to reacting to something over and over again for a long period of time, then it becomes your behavior. Like, I know Mungai reacts to somebody saying they like white chocolate, and I'll be always there to react and say, Bwana, how can you like white chocolate? Bwana, that thing has a bad taste. You see, like, that will always be my behavior. Like, I will react to that first instead of listening to the other person talk about why they like or love white chocolate. Or if you're this kind of person who sees a post online and the first thing you think is, why is this one posting this thing? Why? So it becomes a behavior once you're used to it, once you react for the first time, once you do that action for the first time, and then you do it again and again and again and again. And it becomes a whole pattern where now it is known that this is you, this is exactly you. Like, we can recognize you and your behavior through that particular act that you're giving. So even in another world, somebody will say, this can also be termed as routines that have now become automatic in our own lives. Like, the mind is used to react in this particular way or giving out a solution this particular way because it is used to that particular pattern that it uses for certain situations, as we talked about um, last episode. And to some extent, these particular automatic routines that are, immediately injected into the situations, some of them might save us the mental energy that comes about with thinking over things, with, critical thinking, with analyzing things, because now you're used to a particular situation and pattern. So now what does your mind say? Tafadhali, let us use this particular pattern that we are used to. So to some extent, as I've said, it saves you the mental energy to think about it. But there are times, and for me, I will say it's most of the times, this particular automatic routine, they hold us back. Because if you're held back from, critical thinking, if you're held back from analyzing how a particular situation turns out to be, not once, not twice, not thrice, you're always there, just relying on this particular pattern that you've built up for years and years and years, then it holds you back to having a new perspective of things. It holds you back from appreciating other people's views. It holds you back from gaining more knowledge on a particular situation. It actually holds you back from experiencing life as a whole, And there's also an example that you can give on like how to break bad habits and form new ones. This reminds me of the book, what is the book? Atomic Habits, and I've read like the first 20 pages because clearly Munga is not a good reader. But there was a sentence this guy used, and he was talking about how to cue things, how you create routines, and then it gives you a reward. And it takes time. Like that's a whole process, and you might call it the habit loop because it starts with you being cued to think about something or to have an idea about something. Then you start now, actually doing things physically for you to now seek out this particular idea that has come to you, or this particular, responsibility that has dawned on you. Now, through that, it becomes a routine. And in the end, there's always a reward for it. Either it is bad or good, there's always a reward for every action that you do. Especially now that you probably have an idea of starting out something, and you decide the first thing you want to do is actually write down every single thought process that has gone through your head, and you'll be sitting there writing it down, and from that moment on, you are literally creating. Now I'm speaking like a Kikuyu. You're literally creating a routine in hopes that at the end of the day, this is going to work out and your reward will be delivered at your doorstep. So the Atomic Habits, of course, talks about also how to break bad habits and form new ones. And then there was a time, I think, I had people who were talking about this particular statement where scientists are saying that it takes around 21 days to break a habit or start a new one, like you do it continuously for 21 days, or you stop doing something for 21 days. Well, as much as I might accept about that discovery, or somebody else might have other perspective, like you who's listening, I think that process is really, really tough. Like, it doesn't only take 21 days. It will never take, I don't know, because you might slip back kidogo and then you get yourself back to where you are. You are trying to create something that is new, and then last for over 25 days or even 30 days or 40 days with this new routine. You feel good, you feel accomplished, and then something just triggers you back to the old version of yourself. And that is something personally I never want to experience, where you have to go back to things that didn't serve you. You get, like, you have to go back, or you just fail. I never want to have that kind of life, because in that sense, by the way, you're also creating some kind of automatic routine for your brain to actually give up on new things or give up on new strategies and just go back to the old same, quote unquote devil that you know, which will never serve you. It will never serve you. It will never serve your purpose. It really never builds you and what I think you would love to do. So this is a really, really long topic. And you think about it and how our behaviors work. And then, like, for me nowadays, I don't know what came over me in the past 1 month. Let me call it 1 month, because every time I'm outside, either while going to work in the morning or in the evening while coming off work, or even at work, I am always looking at people from these patterns. Like, I look at people, how they work. I listen to how they talk about their work. I listen to how they talk about their lives. And you start realizing how these patterns that they are forming are really strong. And they're not formed from 5 months ago or 1 year ago. It's years and decades behind of knowing that this is how we are supposed to do things, and we cannot move away from it, because of course you're right. Because you're right. But I think I'm learning to give people grace from a point of life is difficult. Like, life, everyone has his own experiences, but we are all here walking together in matatus, sitting together in airports, also sitting together, bringing in the luggages together, all these things. And I give everyone grace for me to understand that they're just human, and there's really nothing much you can do to quote unquote change them if they themselves do not want that change. And it's a whole process. So also, there's another interesting pattern that is the concept of social proof, where we often look to others to determine what is correct or appropriate. This can lead to both positive and negative outcomes. Now, this is where now I'll start now becoming controversial kidogo, because especially when it talks about this social proof, where we look at others to determine what is correct and appropriate. In these groups that we have of friends and all these people, do people actually build genuine friendships where we can just appreciate each other's likings? Like, I am a Manchester United fan, you're a Chelsea fan, but we found together a purpose in creating a community for ourselves. So anything that involves you as an individual is something that we can just appreciate, unless it's something that is, of course, offensive and has that thing of probably ruining things. So you keep that away. But you see, this kind of social proof, where we see other people in particular situations and we say, men do this. So me as a man, when I hear men do this, I will take it upon myself and say, wow, men do this. Even me, I want to be a man, so I'll do it, And even trends, you can see it falls under social proof, because whatever many people are doing is what people want to be engaged in, and that's how, like, this particular trend of saying demure, very mindful, very cutesy comes about. Is it shows directly how people want to be successful within that particular trend. But as I've said, this can lead to both positive and negative outcomes, whereby probably you can have a pattern that will serve you completely and you'll be happy, and then there are some times where the negativity comes in, whereby you're used to following people so much that you cannot actually trust yourself, or even you do not know yourself to make a decision for you. You have to think about others. Is this right between them? No, is my boys groups zenye mnaongelelea na girls groups, all these things. So that is our second segment of I know stories zinaweza kuwa mingi sana, but I don't want to bombard you with a lot of talk, because I realized last session we talked for 27. Wait, that was a long episode. I wish I had somebody in for that, but anyway, so we have come to the end of behavioral patterns. I hope you've kind of gotten a bit of what patterns form about when it comes to behavior and how they really affect us, and now you can actually sit down and look at these particular two topics, last week's and this week's topic, and you can now start analyzing how your behaviors are. You can now start thinking of how your brain works, when we're talking about cognitive biases and all this information that we have in our head. We have to analyze it slowly by slowly. When somebody talks about it, you just talk about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure, a big pleasure, to host this second segment of the full episode. And see you next time. I love you guys. Thank you very much for each and every one of you who has been sharing this podcast. Manze, I feel really, really honored. I appreciate you guys all. It has been a really good journey with our first season. So even as we come to our end of the first season in like 2 or 3 episodes, I'd like for you to self-reflect on each and every episode that I've laid out. You can go back. You can always go back and listen to something. And, even if it's a question you want to ask of the first episode that was confusing, hey, if you have such things, you can definitely reach out. So, good night, guys. Goodbye. Good morning. We shall see each other on the next and final segment episode of this particular topic. Bye.